Dare I say, the most anticipated edition of Harvey's Hot Takes with Bryan Hayes in a long, long time following this Leafs 6-1 loss in game number 5. Bryan, complete this sentence for me. Worst performance by a Maple Leafs team in a playoff game since?
Before I was born, Jay, and I'll be 42 in a few weeks. So you do the math on that. I'll be 42 in a few weeks, and I don't recall a more embarrassing evening from start to finish than what we witnessed tonight. And what I witnessed tonight, this was quite something to witness live. It was excruciating for the fan base because the Maple Leafs got beat in every single category tonight. They didn't even come close to flipping a coin in any of the categories that the sport brings to the table every single night. The Panthers absolutely destroyed the Maple Leafs tonight. And I think when you think of some of the worst losses that any fan base can experience, let's face it, Maple Leaf fans have experienced a lot of them. And there have been really difficult, heartbreaking losses, Game 7s in the past, maybe Game 5s in the past. You look back 12 years ago yesterday was the Boston Massacre, up 4-1 with 11 minutes to play. The most famous loss, certainly in modern Maple Leaf history. But that was a choke job at the end. That loss in Boston in Game 7, that was heartbreaking. Tonight, this was excruciating. This was painful. This was very difficult to endure if you're a Maple Leaf fan because the Leafs completely no-showed. The Panthers showed up and just mopped the floor with them all night. I can't think of a more embarrassing evening, top to bottom, for the Maple Leafs than what we witnessed this evening.
And Bryan, we've talked over the past couple of weeks about how different this team seemed to look in the postseason this year compared to previous years. It seemed like maybe they had figured things out. What's the main reason, in your opinion, that this Leafs team seems to have returned to the mediocrity, the playoff mediocrity that they've been going through over the past decade?
Well, I do think you have to give the opposition some credit, right? That's a championship caliber team on the other side of the ice, and they absolutely dummied the Leafs in Game 4 and in Game 5 tonight. I mean, the Florida Panthers put on an absolute clinic, but that doesn't excuse the Maple Leafs playing the way they're playing tonight and the way they played tonight, and in some ways the way they played in Game 4. And you mentioned it, over the last decade we've been talking about. Really, it's been 9 years. And who has been here for 9 years? The core 4 players: Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Morgan Riley, right? John Tavares has been here for 7. Those are the guys who we were discussing the last couple of days between Game 4 leading up to Game 5, saying these are legacy moments for them. These are games where they've got to show up and they've got to elevate. And Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner in particular, I cannot think of a worse performance for 2 superstar players in a game of this magnitude. I really can't. I'm sure if you gave me time, I could find it. But the 2 of them were horrible tonight. Austin Matthews, that's as bad as he can play. He still hasn't scored in the series. Nick Robertson made his debut tonight. He scored. He has more goals than Austin Matthews in this series. So that storyline carries over. Mitch Marner in his history in games 5, 6, and 7. He goes into a shell. He did it again tonight. The 3rd goal, he pulls some all-star game spinorama, blind backhand pass up the middle of the ice, and then loses his man backdoor to make it 3-0, and that was it. It was curtains after Mitch Marner did that, and he's done it so many times in his playoff career. So you can look at the depth. You can look at how great the Panthers have been. You can look at how great Sergei Bobrovsky has been the last couple of games, and all of that is true. But ultimately, the constant for 9 straight years is Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. Those guys had to have a moment tonight, and they didn't come close to achieving that.
Based on what you saw in that building on Wednesday, it seems like we're going to have to, it's going to take you a while to get over it, I think. Based on what you saw Wednesday, based on what you've seen from this team, basically, Bryan, since the middle of game number 3, do you give this Leafs team any chance to bring it back to Toronto for a Game 7?
I find it very hard to believe, and honestly, I think they've played every single card they could possibly play to build on any optimism, to have people in their corner. And you look at particularly the way the 3rd period played tonight, that was very disturbing for me, Jay. And I know the game's over, but I was so impressed with the Florida Panthers because they continued their physicality. They continued to forecheck. They continued to protect Bobrovsky like their lives were on the line. They continued to create scrums. They were looking for fights. and the Leafs had no interest. The Leafs showed no fight in the third period tonight, and literally no fights. I mean, it doesn't have to be 1985, but you're losing 6-0 on home ice in a game like this. I expected the gloves to drop at some point.
Yeah.
It never happened. So I think when you consider the Leafs just completely fell asleep and just decided, I want out of here in the third period, and the Panthers showed that championship pedigree, that's very difficult to believe that it's not going to carry over to Game 6. But maybe if you're a dreamer, maybe if you believe in storytelling, this is actually the last shoe to drop. This is what was necessary for the Leafs. They had to be embarrassed in a way like this, and they needed the very last eternal optimist to jump off their bandwagon, for them finally to say, we'll show you. We're going to show literally every Leaf fan, because I can't imagine there's one left that believes they can get back over the top here.
All right, so there you go, Leaf fans. You've hit your rock bottom. Now there's nowhere to go but up. And it begins Game 6, Friday in Sunrise, Florida. This is Bryan Hayes. This has been Hot Takes.
Hot Takes is presented by Harvey's. Customize your burger and get it delivered from our app to your door. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.